Hello and welcome to ETCIO Leaders Live, a program where we talk to IT leaders about their digital game plan and the ways in which they are leveraging technology to manage, get through, and grow beyond the COVID crisis. I'm Sneha Jha, editor at ETCIO, and your host for the session. We are streaming live right now into LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. To make our session even more engaging and inclusive, we are enabling our viewers to ask questions to our guest. So be ready with your questions for him. You might be one of the lucky few who gets their questions answered during the live session. Now, let me get into introducing my guest today. He is Kersey Tavadia, who is the CIO of Bombay Stock Exchange. Kersey has been the IT custodian of the iconic Bombay Stock Exchange for over a decade now. In the course of his 37-year-old career, he has amassed a breadth of experience across the BFSI sector, having worked with organizations like HSBC Direct Invest, IL&FS Invest Smart, and Motilal Oswal Securities. He has vast experience in software development, infrastructure services, and cybersecurity in financial services and capital markets. In his 11-year stint at BSE, Kersey has played a leading role in transforming BSE into the world's fastest exchange with a response time of 6 microseconds. Small wonder then, Kersey is a much awarded and greatly admired CIO in the industry. Good morning, Kersey. It's a privilege
Morning.
to have you as my guest for the inaugural edition of ETCIO Leaders Live.
Thank you for having me here. My pleasure.
You're very welcome, Kersey. Thanks once again for coming on. I hope this finds you and our viewers well, given the context around us. Well, Kersey, we've got a lot to talk about today. So let's start out with the most important and top of the mind question for all of us. As BSE transitions from being a trading exchange to a preferred investment exchange of the country, how are digital technologies taking you closer to that goal?
Well, I would call BSC is also basically an IT company, I would say. Okay, and giving services in investments or capital markets, or that's why we call it ourselves a preferred investment exchange. Traditionally, what has been happening is people have been knowing BSE as only a stock exchange, where they and even in there we are talking about only that you can deal with equities market, whereas we are into so many other markets. Many people are unaware of it actually. So it's basically people should know that BSE is not only into the equity markets, we also do currency markets, derivatives markets. We also have a very large mutual fund trading platform, which is one of the largest in the country. And today it is the largest mutual fund exchange platform where people can buy and sell mutual funds also on our platform. Also, we have very large agriculture market also, which call it a BEAM. It's a BSE's electronic agricultural market, where the farmers can also exchange their produce, buy and sell their produce. I don't know how many people are aware of that. We are also getting into the power exchange. And so slowly and steadily, we are getting into a lot of technologies that are there and leveraging on the technologies that we have to build all these platforms. So over the years, what BSC is specialized is in making platforms, the platforms on which you can make this kind of products available. So we are basically a platform manufacturing company, I would say. Like we make platforms, technology platforms on which you can build all these products. So that is our core specialty in the, and it's not one particular technology platform. It's like it's a host of technologies, different technologies for different purposes, but everything is so tightly integrated with each other that everything has to work well as an ecosystem. So it's not, and we strongly believe in not being anything which is monolithic. I mean, that is the essence of our success over the past decade. That we used to be a monolithic, and most large organizations, legacy organizations, have some monolithic architecture with them. Yeah, like when I took over into BSc, like the first uh, objective was to get off from this monolithic architecture, because when you're stuck into a monolithic architecture, you're almost like bound by the limitations of the monolithic architecture
Correct.
because of the vendor lock-in and so many other dependencies that are there. We went into a complete open source model, or I would say open architecture model. Like whatever is available commonly, we build the platforms using those technologies. So so there is nothing special technologies that we use. We build platforms with all the commonly available technologies. So anybody can build. If he has a skill, you can build the same kind of technology, but it requires skill, effort, perseverance, and the constant passion to be successful. It's not easy to be successful because we always see the final success, but we don't see the failure, multiple failures that we go behind making these products and the technology successful. So basically, what I feel is, as an investment exchange, we are also doing many other products from the customer viewpoints also. We use a lot of automation. See, why we are successful in the technology is because most of our operations are automated. So it's not only uh, technologies that run the platform. Now, how do you execute those platforms or operationalize those platforms? Because, uh, like I said, we make platforms now, but the same platforms are used for multiple purposes, but you still need to do some activities on those platforms again, and you need people for every. Now, as we, for every product, I cannot have a operations team build up, right?
Correct.
So we have to also make it's, we don't even build, we try to also see how we'll make this operations automated. So that is now when you're building platforms. See, earlier we used to always build the platform and leave the operations to human beings. Now the philosophy is, if I have to operate with the least amount of human intervention, how will I operate? I mean,
Mm,
so that is a different mindset thinking in when you're developing a software. It's not
correct.
in the GUI that you'll have human beings make it easy for the human beings. What we are trying to say is, why do you require human beings to operate? That they have to operate, only customers have to operate what they want to see. Because normal, regular work, repetitive work has to be done by the machines, and humans have to come in as an exception. If for ultimately every technology has some failure in some point or other. So only if there's an exception, what you call as exception handling.
Hmm.
So human beings are there for doing exception handling work and not the routine work. So
Okay.
that's why we have gone into technology in every element of our operations, right from starting our machines, like, and to operating, even if it's a provisioning of an infrastructure. So then you get into this cloud based technologies. So even over there, so if it's a hardware provision, even that is automated. When, like, employing onboarding is and fully automated.
Hmm.
All these things have been happening as a journey. Like, I would say, it's not that we did everything.
It's an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing. So it's like you keep on doing it, but once you have what is easy for, since we have the platforms and the infrastructure in place, it's now only thing is we have to put the processes in place to keep making things happen and keep tweaking and fine tuning things. Like,
Hmm. Okay. All right. Kelsey, a stock exchange is an installation of national importance, and there's a public sentiment attached to it. So, any sort of an information security threat at BSE will have very far reaching ramifications. So, in that sense, failure is not an option for you. But as you adopt the complex digital technologies, like you just spoke about, automation and cloud and open source and all of these technologies, at BSE, your attack surface is also becoming wider and more varied. How are you dealing with the constantly accelerating speed, frequency, and the severity of attacks?
so let me put it this way, like, now security is become the most critical part of the IT architecture. I would say the earlier security was the last piece to come in. Like, once everything is developed, first get the business going. Let us have let everything working. Then we'll think about how to make it secure. I mean, that was the mindset couple of years ago. Okay, now the paradigm is shifting. Like, before even we start the project, like, we say whether it is secure to make this project
Mhm.
or not, to whether we take it on this platform, is it safe enough to make it on this. So
Security has to be a bolt on.
bolt on, like, no, we
Mhm.
cannot have thinking about security after the product is developed.
Correct. It's not an afterthought anymore.
It's not an afterthought. So even
Mhm.
so, now when we have internally, we have what we call as the software architecture group. Like, so
Mhm.
whenever a new project comes in for development, the group discusses, and security team is also part of the discussion. So they will have their own viewpoints that this, if you're going to use this technology, these are the vulnerabilities. Why can't we use this technology instead of this technology? So all
Mhm.
those things are the started getting discussed at that level itself.
Mhm.
so that at least the newer platforms that we are making, they go into that kind of software development itself is getting secured. So
Mm-hmm.
that is just one element, I would say. Secure the cyber security surface itself is so vast now that it's a sort of a, like one of the critical business function, I would say.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, okay, it's become the core. Like trading is our core for the business.
Mm-hmm.
Security is the core business for the survival of the business itself.
Absolutely.
Okay, so like you have a core operations team for doing operations, we have a core security team,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who manages every aspect of the security of the cyber security. Like you mentioned, there is a complete landscape of the securities that are there.
Mm-hmm.
It starts from the core, the innermost. Like we go inside to outside rather than we focus more on inside to outside rather than outside to inside.
Correct.
Like, okay, so that there's nothing going out from it from inside. So that user behaviors, who's doing what,
Mm-hmm.
like because a lot of people have privilege accesses. Like I would say
Correct.
in a stock exchange now,
Mm-hmm.
is a privilege access being used beyond the privilege?
Mm-hmm.
So even that is being. It's not that once you're privileged, you can do anything.
Correct.
Okay, so you're privileged for A activity, you
Mm-hmm.
need not even try B activity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have something called as a user behavior analytics that we keeps running at the in every day
Okay.
on our
Okay.
dashboards, and we
For
see
fraud
who's
detection and incident management and all of those things.
that is still later. I'm saying just from a normal human behavior.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. See,
Mm-hmm.
the idea is you are tempted. See what we're trying to see if somebody is getting tempted to log into other system.
Mm-hmm.
The system might fail him because he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have privilege. But at least we get an alert that he tried to do it and he has failed.
Mm-hmm.
It is like
Right.
trying
Right. Right.
to, so suppose it's an access door is there, and
Mm-hmm.
you put your tap your card and try your luck.
Mm-hmm.
That's though it is you know you're not supposed to enter there. You will not have,
Like
but somebody
judging
if
the
you
intent of the
intent.
miscreant.
So
Mm-hmm.
we even you try to judge the intent over there.
Okay.
First of all.
Okay.
So if somebody says, okay, once you can accept once or twice accidentally, I was trying a long path, wrong URL or I clicked on the wrong link or something like that. That's okay. See,
Mm-hmm.
this is all like we said, no, this is a maturity model. It
Mm-hmm.
takes time to develop all this.
Evolves over a period of time.
Yeah, so this is a AI and ML, which is what
Mm-hmm.
we call artificial intelligence and machine learning that you put in. It builds this user scores, like who's doing the most number of mistakes. So that accordingly, then we try to even train those people,
Mm-hmm.
okay, okay, and counsel them if needed.
Right.
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 Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that is why we take. So basically, we follow the very principle of zero trust. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
concept of zero trust has changed post pandemic.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, we used to have zero trust, which within the organization, people were trusted. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
outside was a zero trust.
Correct.
Okay. Now, with this pandemic, now since people are working from home, we have to
Mm-hmm.
change the thing that nobody is trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Even I am not
Correct. There could
trusted.
be a sharing of laptops at home.
Yeah, even I am not trusted for that matter, or
Mm-hmm.
anybody. Even my MD is not trusted. Even
Mm-hmm.
we had a very strict policy about the security that our knock area operations
Mm-hmm.
are controlled so much that even if our MD has to visit, like now, he doesn't have a direct access. Like, of course, he'll have to be guided into that room
Okay.
because technically, we believe that if you're not required to work on this floor, you are not supposed to be on this floor.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so it's very simple. So we
Mm-hmm.
try to. So it's not really need to know basis. Like normally we have this concept of need to know basis in when giving the user access profiles. Okay, here what we are saying is it is not even you need not be here if you don't want to if you're not working here.
Mm-hmm. Complete access control.
It's complete access control. So it starts. So we don't follow our organizational hierarchy. It is
Mm.
purely role based hierarchy.
Okay.
If you are in this department, this function, then you need to come on this floor. Otherwise, you don't have a floor access also. So
Okay.
don't keep on tapping on the floor doors because you're not
Mm.
supposed to be on this.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
So we start from so that starts right from the access control. Similarly, slowly it goes up. We also do a lot of uh, DDoS management. Suppose if the attacks are coming from external, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like so we also try and look at those areas also continuously because being a national critical infrastructure, we get highest number of hits also. uh,
Correct.
from the normal users as well as people who try to break in. Okay, so we have to be successful every time. Like the attacker has to be successful only once. Okay, they may try
Correct.
10,000 times to try, and they need to be successful only once. I have to be
Mm.
successful every time.
Every time. It's a
Okay,
constantly waging war
yeah, it's a constant war. So it's
and a
nothing like we are.
multi-front battle at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is not only, so that's something every area has it's got its niches. Then similarly, we also
Hmm.
think about we do something what is called a smoke screen, it's detector.
Hmm.
Basically, it's a decoy systems. We have to put decoys. So decoys are nothing but it's like you like we have the intent of a person internally. Decoys we use as an intent from an external. So agencies that it looks something like BSC's system, but it may not be actual the BSC system. Okay, so but
Hmm.
you're trying to break into
Okay.
that also. Try to come. We know the intent of the person.
Hmm.
He's trying to scan something for the BSC. So before he reaches the
Hmm.
actual site, we can block him.
Hmm.
Also, we use AI and ML. Like we use this Watson's, like IBM Watson, as a tool to do some
Hmm.
AI. Suppose if the attack has happened and we see a ticketing also an R service, some though parameter is blocked, we can
Correct.
learn from that okay, where all this person has gone and done something.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay, so there are intelligence tools. So again, like I said, this is all you need skill and knowledge and perseverance to learn this tool because this tool itself is very
Hmm.
complicated.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, the tool
Hmm.
itself is very vast. To learn that tool and to get the right reading from this tool also is very, very important in cybersecurity.
Right.
Buying
Right.
tools is buying problems. I would relate to that.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so don't buy tools because if you buy a tool, you're buying problems. Buy
Hmm.
solutions by learning what is to be used in the tool. That is my
Hmm.
philosophy and a message to anyone who's listening that like
That's a great and a very powerful message at that, given there's such a plethora of security products and services in the
products
market. You have to
available.
be very judicious and, conscious of what you're investing in.
Yeah, because it's a challenge in integrating so many things. Because what we call is
Absolutely.
uh, all these 40, 50 tools that you did, it's very difficult to watch so many dashboards. So then we have to
Correct.
consolidate all of them into and bring it to one single dashboard.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so
Hmm.
that the persons who are watching, they also have a like they get an alert and then for details they can go to the respective
Hmm.
applications dashboard and try to do their analysis. So this is the
Hmm.
complete security landscape that we have. So it for us, it's like it's one of the largest departments now in BSc.
Hmm.
I would say.
Hmm. Okay. No, and understandably so, because like you said, the attackers have to be successful only once, but you have to be successful every time. For you, it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole all the time. So,
Yeah.
so I can completely understand why you have to be so prepared in terms of handling cybersecurity at BSc. Now, Casey, you also mentioned in your first response that you're at a platform manufacturing company. I wanted to call attention to the fact that since BSc does not produce any tangible physical product, in fact, I'd say that it produces nothing except trust. So, what role does IT play in furthering this trust in a transparent manner?
I would say the first trust which BSc has created in the market is the uptime. Like
Mm,
today, BSc is known in the market for its uptimes, like the technological uptimes. Like in the last so many world over in India also, many exchanges, there have been many outages here and there. But BSc has never had a technical glitch in last so many years. So that is the one of the biggest trust factors that we have built up. Hello,
yes,
are you there? Yeah,
yes, Casey.
yeah. So that was the first thing on the technology platform that we have proven, and this is what the market is also now like. It's like setting a benchmark for your own.
Mm, mm,
Okay, so the trust is yes, it is always available, always there. The customer service is always available.
mhm,
The way we have been developing our platforms, like for example, even in our trading platform, that we have tried to bring transparency in whatever we do. Everything that we do in even in the technology, we transparently tell our members this is the way this system will work, this is the way we will be going to do things for you. For example, in a trading system, for example, let us put it one simple thing, like nobody does this except BSC as of now, that we give 6 different timestamps when you place an order and your trade confirmation. Normally, people would give, like, you place the order and then you got the confirmation. So it is only in and out. So
Mhm.
so in a trading system, you definitely, what do you call is round trip time. Now, even when you are doing a 6 microseconds, and people who are doing algorithmic trading, they really want to know at what point in time I wasted maximum time. Like, for example, when the
Okay.
order comes into the system, there is
Mhm.
a gateway, then there is something called as a matching engine, and then there is trading happening, and then there is a
Mhm.
reverse response. And again, this order waits into a gateway, and then the customer gets back. So at
Mhm.
each point in time, there is a timestamp,
Mhm.
and the customer gets to know. So it is not only that you tell the customer that your link was slow or your system has a problem.
Mhm.
We are so transparent that even if it is delay in our system, the customer knows
Okay.
also. Okay. So you can also, the matcher was queuing, there was
Mhm.
a queuing sometimes, or at the peak hours, there was a delay. Okay, because this is so fast. Okay. So, but at least if you give them the information, we don't hide
Mhm.
anything. So it's
Mhm.
like what I'm saying, we don't have to manufacture any information to be shared. Whatever
Mhm.
is already there is already available with them,
Okay.
people to
Okay.
watch it.
Mhm.
So that is
Mhm.
a kind of trust and transparency that we are bringing in.
Mhm. Mhm. Given the fact that speed is an essence in your business.
Business, yeah.
Mhm. Okay. All right. The other important aspect that I wanted to touch upon with you, Casey, is that, like I said earlier, also BSc is an institution of national significance. And if technology goes down or your operations are disrupted, people feel that there's something wrong with the markets and it could even lead to market volatility. Now, I get that you have a very robust DR and BCP plan in place even before the pandemic struck as a part of your regulatory and compliance. You normally execute two DR drills in a year when the entire stock exchange operates out of the DR site for 2 days without any disruption. You also have some tabletop exercises to deal with emergency situations, but this is a situation that I'm sure you wouldn't have rehearsed for. And the pandemic completely turned the concept of business continuity and operational resilience on its ear. So, as a stock exchange, you're primarily an on-site operations. But as we rolled into the pandemic, your staff or your teams were not on-site and in front of you anymore. How did you ensure that in this new abnormal, your systems, networks, data centers maintain the highest standards of business continuity and resilience while also maintaining flexibility?
So, like you mentioned, Sneha, we already had a BCP plan in place. The only difference, I mean, even in that BCP plan, we did have a thing that just in case nobody is able to reach the office, can at least 5, 6 people, 10 people were identified. At least they were what we call it, they were super privileges
Okay.
users.
Hmm.
Okay, so can they come log in at a certain point and start the operation, because operations had to be automated. So that was already there. So only somebody should log in and start, tell the automation, okay, start the market. So we were anyway ready with that kind of. All we had to do was now instead of 5 people, it had to be transferred to 5,000 people. This message.
Okay.
So conceptually, we were very clear how to make it happen. Okay, how we will do it. Okay. Only thing was the scale
Hmm.
became a challenge for us. So we had to go and talk to the OEMs, I mean the manufacturers, to just give us more licenses, because earlier we had a say, it's a 25 user pack, like no, just license to log in remotely, because we never really said we require more than that. Like when, that was a worst case scenario.
Hmm.
So so we had to overnight go and negotiate with them, and honestly, everybody was very cooperative. It was just everybody. I think so. It is the kind of trust that you have built over a period with all these OEMs. So I mean, nobody wasted even time. It was just on a fly. Let's open up the gates. Use as much as you want. We'll worry about licensing
Hmm.
later on. Right? We got the keys and people, we could manage it. The most important thing, we wanted to make sure that we did not want to take the compute outside of the organization. So, like you
Okay.
said, Okay, we are an
Mhm.
on-prem
Mhm.
operations. We wanted to ensure that operations does not go off site. Like now,
Correct.
so the way we did was we brought remote connectivities, and the operations happened on site only. Okay, so that is the
Okay.
way we designed our work from home and the complete remote workforces. That all the critical staff who had to work on prem, okay, though remotely they could they had the devices or we gave them the devices, but that was purely for connecting, making connections, and then getting onto the local desktops or the local machines and working like normal that they were
Mhm.
working.
Mhm.
Okay. So this
Okay.
ensures that operations part of it, like when the system is operating, there was no lag because technically the operations is happening on the desktop and the server, which is on the local LAN.
Mhm.
Okay. The only thing that you're typing is the keyboards and you're viewing the screen. So
Okay.
from a user's experience perspective, the operations user's perspective, they never found any difference. There was no lag. See, unlike many other financial institutions or many others, and they people were given desktop, they took their desktop home and they
Mhm.
were trying to do their operations. And I have known so many of our friends and colleagues said, okay, operations are getting impacted and we're going back to office.
Mhm.
Like, we are one organization where not a single person said, okay, we want to go back to office.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a kind of, I mean, it was more of a strategy call that we'll say, okay, we'll do everything. It also happens in that case, your security become very strong.
Mhm. Mhm.
See, what you need to open is only keystroke and screens of certain people at certain levels. So you don't have to bother
Correct.
too much.
Correct.
So, so giving access to 1,000 people is always very, very challenging. Earlier, when it was easy for 5, 6 people, 20 people, it was still a manageable task. We could
Mhm.
ask them to take the laptops and work from laptops directly into the system. But in this was
Mhm.
a totally a different scenario altogether.
Okay.
So we have to make that. At the same time, we have to also ensure that the people that were critical staff, we had to keep them on site. So we had to arrange the hotel accommodation very close by, and
Mhm.
we had to make people in a 12-hour shift. And
Okay.
we stood one, so some people were on, and we had 15 days shifts also.
Mhm.
So that time, that cycle was a 15 days. Like, no, that mindset was like you have, even if you're there, you have to get quarantined for 15 days or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had to make sure. So we said, okay, if the team is there, let the whole team stay. None of them goes home because we never wanted to. Of course, there was no transport, but we also in Bombay, people stay far and wide.
Mhm.
Nobody stays okay very close to the office.
Especially
So people,
people working in BSc come from very far-flung areas as far as
yes,
Panvel and Navi Mumbai.
yes, yeah, much further than that. So on an
Okay.
average, people spend 2 to 3 hours. I mean, one side, I would say,
Mhm.
2 hours plus more. So any day in a 4 to 5 hours minimum, people spend traveling. So
Mhm.
we wanted to save that travel time and the dangers associated with that travel, the chances
Correct.
of people
Mhm.
getting affected. No, no, we did
Mm.
not want to take any chances. So we had to make sure that people who are there in the office, they are well taken care of because they are the guys who are going to, they are your the most key people are going to be kept at the office and they have to be well taken care of.
Mhm.
So we have to ensure that everything, their boarding, lodging, food, medicine, whatever they wanted was provided. Okay, and the hotels were close by, so they could walk down. So there's no question of transport or traveling in a car or something like that. So
Mhm.
they could walk down to the office and do their work. If they feel tired, they can go there, rest there, come back.
Mhm.
So we made that kind of arrangement, and even to today also that continues because
Mhm.
we found that model very successful, and the rest of the people can stay at home and work.
Mhm.
So only if you need to come to office, people can come to office. So
Okay.
it's not only this was that even at that time we did some very, very large migration projects also.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Okay. So, Kersi, if my memory serves me right, I remember reading somewhere that the regulators also made the BCP strategies very stringent. So, did that add to the complexity, or you were very well prepared for it?
To Like I said, we were practicing this BCP drills. BCP is also automated. Let me put it that way. Like we are starting the operations, we have been practicing the automation of what is called disaster failover. So if
Mm-hmm.
there's a disaster happens, you have to shut down the PR and bring up your DR, all activities on the PR immediately and start.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started, we had we used to do that manually, and we used to take about, the RTO was 4 hours.
Okay.
Okay, and we had almost like a 100 people working on site on a Friday night, and by Saturday we used to somehow make it up. It's a lot of tension, and then now this entire automation can be done by just 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have brought it down to 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now this is a kind of work which does not happen overnight. I can keep on saying
Mm.
this because this is practice and practice and practice and practice. There is no
Correct. Mm.
one bullet or one formula for anything,
Mm.
because
Mm. And it's a
because it's
completely a team effort sort of a
completed team
success.
effort, and the kind of changes that we do. See, it's when you're doing every week, almost we are rolling out some new feature or a new application or a new modification. You have to also ensure that your DR is also in sync,
Mm.
right?
Correct.
So whatever automation you have done, your programs or the structures that you have made, so your change management also has
Mm.
become very, very stringent and very difficult, I would say,
Very
because
tightly coupled as
tight
well.
curve
It's
as
all
well, so
in
that your
very.
DR also has to be uh, updated. So when we fail over,
Mm.
we should know that the all the applications are the same images there on the DR also,
Mm.
even when you're doing a release management.
Correct.
So in a traditional banking or traditional other manufacturing, I would say it is
Mm-hmm.
the changes are not that much
Correct.
that we do in capital markets, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
See, for them,
Absolutely.
software releases once in a quarter or once in 6 months, so they are
Mm.
very comfortable. It's not a very major thing. For us,
Mm.
it's almost every week.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, that the software changes are there, so that's why it is even more difficult for us.
Very complex
So,
also.
and we have been successful purely because we have worked on very, very hard on the automation piece. And
Mm.
I think, in fact, last week in 28th of May, last month
Mm-hmm.
only,
Mm-hmm.
the regulator gave us a call at 5 in the morning
Mm.
and asked us, today you will shift to DR.
Okay.
This was a totally an unannounced drill.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm.
from the regulator side, because we keep on saying that yes, we are prepared, so they wanted to test us.
Oh, I see.
Okay, whether we are faking or whether we are actually very able to do it.
Okay.
So, okay, so we got a call. So by 5:30, our team was there in the war room, what we call as the war room. We
Mm.
were there.
Mm.
We started our automation processes, and by 6:15, the market was ready.
Okay.
So, so this is the kind of work that happens in BSC, and it's basically a team effort, and everybody has to contribute to this success, like I would say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it
Okay.
cannot happen by just one team or one division or something like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
every 5 minutes reduction in your RPO takes a
Mm-hmm.
humongous effort. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I said, it's always easy to come to 95%, come to then to make 96%, it is 2x of effort. To make it 97, it will be 5x of effort. To make it 99, it is 10x effort.
Mm.
So every smaller delta that you try to come closer, the effort is very, very high.
Correct. Correct. And it's a concerted effort when it comes to
Yes.
critical infrastructure, things like these. Right. So, Kelsey, you were talking about it, and I'm sorry I interrupted you mid-sentence. When the pandemic struck, BSC, like you were telling us, was on the verge of some very critical IT transformation projects. You were in the midst of your storage migration project. You were also shifting your data center. How did you manage these projects remotely to ensure that they didn't skip a beat? And how did you embed operational resilience into the implementation?
See, any large organization, the enterprise storage is like the heart of the system. Like today,
Correct.
compute is not considered the heart. The storage is considered the heart, because ultimately all your residual data, what is required to
Mm.
rebuild your application, the data is like what is the data is the new oil. There are so
Correct.
many jargons for the data, but for us, it's the storage becomes your heart. Like where all
Mm.
ultimately any system, whatever you do your compute, it has to then throw and store the data somewhere, right? So that is called, we call it as in a simple language, it's a storage unit. Now we were in
Correct.
the midst of that migration, and our plan was to finish by March end. Okay, and so or say mid of April was our target, and we had started the work say sometime in January. This migration activity, so a huge thing, and suddenly early March, we started getting those signals like, okay, there is something like Corona coming somewhere in the
Hmm.
world. It is happening. Okay, we
Correct.
even okay. So nobody was so concerned, but at least we started. So even at that time, we started making teams like so that we said some team will come in office A and we have another office in Bilapur. So we
Hmm.
even started making people shift and sit in two offices, just
Okay.
thinking that the whole team should not get infected. See, it was
Hmm.
all we used to think very weird because we were not clear of what we are going to hit because it was all hearsay what we were listening from the
Correct. Yes.
news and everything. So we had to make
Hmm.
sure that uh, so we made those kind of operations. People sit in two locations and see whether we are able to operate also because at the end of the day, we wanted to ensure that this project of migration was had to be successfully done because there were a lot of dependencies on that. This product was going end of support, end of cycle, life cycle.
Hmm.
So we did
Hmm.
not want to risk any of these things, because it is not only that the vendor will not give you a support. It is if it we like the challenges that we face, even the vendor would face the same challenge of
Hmm.
getting the logistics, getting the spares, getting the people put onto this. So we had to ensure that in the limited time we did migrate and without any failures. See,
Hmm.
the the risk was if we don't migrate also we would have been happy. Nothing
Hmm.
would have happened on the
Correct.
hindsight.
Hmm.
Okay. But the risk is always that yes, suppose the hardware fails, the old hardware
Hmm.
fails. Okay.
Hmm.
What would you do?
Correct.
Okay. So nobody like it is said that in an exchange, if you delay a project, there is nobody questioning you. But
Hmm.
if you fail in your migration, there'll be a
Hmm.
thousand questions that you'll have to answer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So so that is where but we took this call, okay, let us do it. And the team had to be uh, communicated, had the team had to be built up, team had to be given confidence. Okay, yes, we can do it because culturally it was a mindset issue that we have been tuned
Hmm.
for so many years that you have to be at 6 o'clock in the office, you have to be on this floor, you have to be inside the data center to do all this work.
Hmm.
Okay, it was always that even the engineers themselves felt that ultimately they're sitting on a computer and typing a keyboard, but they
Hmm.
just feel physically so attached, get close to the data center, but they're not physically actually touching the machine.
Hmm.
So that psychological people, even the our engineers also, okay, had to be 10. Yes, the fact that you are able to do it, you can do it from your home also,
Hmm.
or you can do it remotely also. Can you not? So we had to do this activity gradually. We could not, like I would say, it was not like everybody was pulled out. There were some people who were required on the site, like what I would say, people who required to be working on the consoles of the machine.
Hmm.
Means you have to physically work on the machine itself, the storage
Correct.
itself.
Correct.
Okay. Only they were allowed to be in the office. Rest
Hmm.
everybody was said you can sit outside the office and communicate. And I think so. The team's collaboration started. All the collaborative tools we started using very, very, very effectively. I
Hmm.
would say collaborative tools were there.
Hmm.
Okay, even prior to the pandemic, but seldom anybody used it.
Correct.
Okay, it was
Hmm.
meant okay. Just people need to talk on it to see whether the tool is working.
Okay.
Okay, चलो
Right.
आज
Right.
वेबएक्स पे बात कर लेते हैं. Like it was
Hmm. Correct.
और द टीम्स पे बात कर लेते हैं.
Hmm. Hmm.
क्या चलता है. But now this became your lifeline.
Correct. Absolutely. Hmm.
Okay, so that collaborative effort of people working also is very, very important.
Hmm.
There were multiple advantages. I mean, I would say the pandemic brought in. One
Hmm.
is it gave people the ability to work from anywhere, anytime. Okay, so people could work even at 12 in the night, 2 in the night, because and the concept of shift eroded. Like, you had this
Hmm.
shift cycles, like, first shift, second shift, then
Correct.
handover, rollover.
Hmm.
People will come and
Hmm.
all that thing blurred out.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
somebody wanted, if you wanted, though he has done a night shift, but you want to help him, ask him, and maximum what you'll have to wake him up. Okay, get up, get onto your computer and get log in and tell me what is the problem.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So our teams work like that. Honestly, our
People became
teams
more
work like
accessible.
more accessible, and nobody minded it. Yes, why should I work? I've done a night because any which ways
Hmm.
he had to also pass time because there's nothing
Hmm.
else to go. And our philosophy was, at least it was my philosophy, that keep making them work so that they don't get distracted to TVs or and watching all the sad news, because
Correct.
the news that was floating around was
Mm,
pathetic and it was very, very
mm,
depressing. And
true,
I
true.
wanted to make sure that my team does not, nobody gets into depression. They
Mm,
might get
mm,
exhausted by working with me. That is fine. They
mhm,
will sleep peacefully. But sitting idle and watching TV,
mm,
I almost made sure that I didn't give anybody spare time to watch TVs later.
mm. A digital blackout from TV and all of the other things
Yeah, so they would
which
work
happens.
and people worked and we were working almost
Mm,
practically most of the team were working 16, 17 hours during those
okay.
times to make those things happen. And that's how these things could happen. So
Mm,
this is
mm,
purely the team was fantastic and
correct.
it was like you lead the team and you lead by example and the team also follows. So I think
Mm,
the team did it and I'm very happy for the team that they could
mhm,
we could turn out which was a 6 month project to a into a 1 month project.
mhm.
That is the kind of
Right.
work that happened because of pandemic.
Okay. Okay. All right. Kelsey, I want to understand from you, since you have a very robust operational resilience and digital resilience structure at BSE. What is your advice to organizations as they try to future proof their technology choices and decisions for a more resilient tomorrow?
My simple advice is don't get bogged down with the availability of technologies. I would say there could be many technologies in the world.
Mhm,
Does your business need it? Like, no.
mhm,
Okay, and that should be the first choice. You
mhm.
should see what is best suited, or can you do a business better with a particular technology? Please do it.
Correct. Mm, mm,
Okay, but because this technology, and I am not using it at all, and
mm,
getting sad and trying to use the technology, and just for the heck of using a
mm,
technology
mm,
and investment, I am not that person, and I would not advocate that to anybody. Only if
mhm,
your business is, for example, there's a lot of hype about. I mean, I would not say hype nowadays about cloud and cloud. It's
mm.
okay if you're not doing a cloud on certain areas.
Mm-hmm. In the pandemic period, it's become almost table stakes. Like it's a must have, and this the next.
See, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to counter anybody. Again, I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying it's a very big
It should
hype.
meet your business objectives.
Yeah,
Only if it does, then
yeah,
it's worth implementing.
it's worth it because today pandemic after 6 months because to it's not easy to migrate legacy
Mm,
to new platform because
correct.
it is not just a platform change. Okay,
Mm,
let me put it that way. So buying a technology, it requires a complete uh, re-architecting your complete business model or your applications stack or your
mm,
infrastructure stack. So it's a complete journey. It requires a lot of detailed planning.
mm, mm,
See, it is unfortunately I keep hearing a lot of this consultants and cloud consultants. Yes, sir, we could wrap it up in 1 month. We'll transform your organization. It does not happen. I mean,
mm, mm,
it may happen in smaller areas or a niche, but your business critical areas where you've spent years and years of developing a
mhm,
stable product and a mature
mm,
product. That product has its own nuances, I would
mhm.
say, which maybe in the cloud it might just fail
Correct.
because these nuances were built for a traditional uh, legacy infrastructure approach.
Mhm,
So these things are not known to the end user nor to the user of the application, but because maybe the application is developed 5 years, 10 years ago,
mhm,
the developer himself does not know why he developed like that.
mm, mm.
Okay, and
Correct.
this is very practical scenario what I'm talking. So 10 years ago, if you ask him if he's there, when you're maybe that time I thought it was right, and which is
Mhm,
correct. At that time, it
mhm,
might be right, but today it might be wrong. But it's still
mm.
working.
Correct.
Now, unless you want to change all those things, so software re-engineering is you have to keep looking at it. So I would say it is more of an architecture re-engineering rather than just a software re-engineering never happens in isolation. That is
Mm,
my
mm.
take.
Correct.
Software is uh, developed based on the ecosystem on which you are going to run it.
Mm, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Kersi, we are getting a very interesting question from one of our viewers. He wants to know how did the pandemic have an impact on your leadership style? How did it change your leadership style as an IT leader?
Maybe I became more accessible to people.
Mm,
Okay, so earlier, uh, maybe I had long meetings, or I had to, if somebody had to call me, I had to go somewhere,
mm,
or the call on the Teams meeting. So people were to get people together to move. See, even BSc has so many floors, and one of the reasons of not having meetings was the meetings room were limited. I mean, there are
mm,
so many things in a physical world. Now, all those things
mm,
have changed today, and
mm,
we could also work freely. And I myself, I think so. During the pandemic, most of the people have started working even harder or longer
mm,
hours. So
mm,
it is work from home is work only from home. It has become like no,
mm,
and only work
mm,
from. Okay, so we don't do homework. We do work from
mm,
home for office.
mm.
So for most people, it has become like that. At least it's for
Okay.
me personally, I would say. But
Okay.
people have been accessible, and I have been able to answer many of the people's queries. Like I would say, I will not be able to
Mm,
solve most of their problems, but at least
mm,
because many a times you have to just hear the problem statement and just give them guidance, the team guidance, and the team works over it.
mhm, mm. Okay. There's another question coming in from Ahmedabad, and the viewer wants to know how you're leveraging data for handling frauds at BSc.
We have a very strong automated, I would say, this was one of the biggest projects BSA did was the fraud detection. Okay, using our data warehouse projects, which we started about 5 years ago, and we have a completely AI and ML driven model where we try to do circular. If somebody is trying to do circular trading or somebody is working on the rumors, so we collect data from the TV, the social media channels,
Mm-hmm.
even like the television channels where you run the stickers, or somebody gives you in what to say this investment advices like buy this,
Mm-hmm.
sell this, or this. We track all those things and try to uh, uh, analyze it, and so that is somebody taking, so after this talk, who all are trying to buy or sell into something, so is
Okay.
this motivated or it is not motivated. So
Mm-hmm.
all these kind of things that we keep doing it, and that modeling is also constantly updated. We
Mm-hmm.
even capture all the newspaper articles. Like no,
Mm-hmm.
I would say now the newspapers are no longer being read. Like earlier, we used to have this concept. There was a team which used to read the newspapers and see if there are any news which are coming into
Mm-hmm.
the market in the news, and then based on the news, we try to analyze whether the companies, what is mentioned about the company which is going to be listed, is it the fact or a fiction? Like no.
Mm-hmm.
So we call up that company secretary or the management and
Mm-hmm.
get the response, and then it was being put up. Now all these things used to take time. Now
Mm-hmm.
today we have automated this whole thing. The
Okay.
system checks, the AI or the ML checks the model from whether the news channels we subscribe to, so many TV or this RSS feeds coming from so many different medias we collate over here, and we
Mm-hmm.
run our own algorithms to find out whether there's a any rumor or a news, because with the company was supposed to inform us and company is not informed us,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, so we then it does some intelligence, and then we automatically the message is sent to the company
Mm-hmm.
officials, whatever that type is directly displayed on the VSC website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And does
so
this
that
also
is,
happen on the Twitter posts and the social media posts?
yeah, all the social media posts also we
Okay.
get, whatever we are getting, whatever we read it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how it is done. So it is very little human intervention
Okay.
involved. This
Okay.
entire
Mm-hmm.
thing is automated. So there is no like it cannot be that the company told the exchange something and the exchange represented it wrongly on the website. So whatever
Mm-hmm.
like what you call, it's a straight through processing. Whatever the company secretary gives the message to the exchange, the automate at the same time it's also published for the people to see on our website. So on our website you get everything. There's a question asked to the company, and this is the response from the company, so
Mm-hmm.
that the people at large are not going by the rumors that they say. They have to follow what is the news which is printed on the stock exchange platform.
Okay, okay, all right. Casey, in this last few minutes of our discussion with you, I'd like to understand from you very quickly if you could tell us what is your technology vision for Bombay Stock Exchange?
We wanted to be the most agile platform. So what I
Mm-hmm,
would say is so that we can and do a lot of work, and we are constantly trying to innovate. And we even if you have developed an application say maybe 4 or 5 years 6 years ago, we want to relook why did we develop. So it's
mm-hmm,
like we constantly ask ourselves that we developed something 5 years ago,
mm-hmm,
do we still need to continue that, or we want to relook, revive, or scrap it? Like, no, that's a constant journey. And we wanted to become the most like I said, it's a platform company where
mm-hmm,
we can develop any kind of platforms that is being required for the investment markets. Like I would not say only capital markets, any investments
mm-hmm.
like that for that
Okay.
particular matter.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Cassie. Well, it's been an absolute delight talking to you today. I've learned a lot about, your vision for BSC, your strategy in project management and investment in, these digital projects. I'm sure our viewers have to listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. And thanks once again for coming on this chat session to help us kickstart the ETCIO Leaders Live series. A big thank you to all our viewers for being with us today and sharing your questions with Kelsey. We'll be back next Thursday with another interesting session of ETCIO Leaders Live. Follow us on social media to find out who's our guest for the next week. Until next time, this is Sneha Jha signing off.
Okay, thank you, Sneha, and thank you everybody.